This is George
Cool.
Dionne with Metal Express Radio, and I'm here with Mark Mangold of the band Touch. How you doing today, Mark?
I'm good. Good to see you.
Awesome. Good to see you again.
Yes.
Last time we talked, we were talking about American Tears. Now we're talking about your early 80s band Touch, which actually formed out of American Tears.
Yes.
But if I knew nothing about the band Touch, how would you describe the band's music to me?
Oh, God. Well, first of all, we have three lead singers. So there's big vocals, a lot of lush harmonies. Depends on the song, really. You know, we had a song called Don't You Know What Love Is, which was power chords with kind of symphonic keyboards and 70 tracks of background vocals and
Yeah, I'd say you got...
hopefully catchy melodies, relevant lyrics. These lyrics on this new record are, I would say, quite personal depending on the song. Some are quite superficial depending on the song. We have a song called A Little Bit of Rock and Roll where we said, we got to stop being so serious here. Let's just, be stupid. So we did.
I'd say you got a little bit of American Tears going on in there. You got a little bit of Foreigner going on in there. You got 70s prog rock lockdown for sure.
Okay.
Your new album, Tomorrow Never comes out April 30th, I believe, in the US. And It's been 40 years since the last Touch album. You have all the original members. How did it all come together here in 2021?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. We have been in touch, but about 2 years ago, I was like, can't we just do one song? Let's just, for old time's sake, for our fans, because I know we have a lot of not a lot of, but we have 5 or 6 very, very dedicated, insane fans who would, kill for another taste of what we do. So I sent the guys a couple songs, and they dug 4 of them. So we ended up wanting to do 4, and then Craig wrote a few songs, and Doug wrote a few songs, and we just launched into it. We got together right before this pandemic hit in March of 2020. We got together in New York for a couple sessions at my place, and we had a great time, and it was so much fun revisiting what we did and just the camaraderie of our friendship and an excuse to hang, which is a good reason to do any of these things. And then when it hit, everybody went back to their respective places. Craig's in Chicago, Doug's in Connecticut, Glenn's in New Jersey. And Craig learned how to use Logic, which is a music program, and he got quite good at it, as did Doug. And we would just do FaceTime and sessions like that. And we just built it up and built it up. And before you knew it, we had 12 songs, and they would send me the files. I would end up mixing most of it. Except for one song I mixed, we used Tommy Denander for old time's sake, because he's a friend on one song. So yeah, we slowly kind of did it ourselves and figured out how to do it.
It's still early on in the promotion process for the album. Are you planning any single releases?
Yes. We put out a teaser in November, December called Tomorrow Never Comes, which really encouraged us to finish the thing because the response was so overwhelming and eye-opening in a way. I mean, I knew we had people looking out there, but I think in a day we had 2,000 views on YouTube on this song. It was like, guys, come on, there's people out there who would, love to hear what we're doing. So November, December was very, very busy finishing up the tracks, finishing up vocals and guitar solos, and I was mixing 10 hours a day here. And We were fortunate to have it mastered by a guy named Jacob Hansen, who's an amazing mastering engineer, and he helped bring it, that extra 10% that made it sound a little more polished and more like a record, I would say.
Jacob's one of the Jacob's
like
the guy. I've interviewed so many people in which Jacob's actually done their albums this past year. He seems to be the new guy.
He is so amazing and such a sweet guy, and sadly, a lot of the old school guys are gone. I used to work with a guy named George Marino, who did Zeppelin and everybody, Coldplay. I mean, everybody. And when you gave it to George, it was, if he liked it and you got his blessing, that's really all you wanted. Yeah, he could master it and he might do something to it. And sometimes he did, a lot to it, but it really was getting his okay just meant a lot. And there's another guy in Sweden who sadly passed away a year and a half ago named Limpan. Another old school guy. I mean, these guys were there in the day, so they understood the ambience and analog warmth that you want. So it really was hard to find somebody these days who could really do that, because there's so many dance guys out there who slam it and compress it and crush it, and then it loses its dynamics and its kind of intimacy. But Jacob is very good at that. And the mixes were not bad either, I might add. So, he didn't have to do that.
Absolutely. I think this may be the best Touch album that's out there, actually. I listened to the album.
Whoa.
I went backwards and kind of listened to things, and I'm like, this album is, like you said, more dynamic. There's a lot more sound coming out. I mean, we're comparing, 2021 to 1980, 1981. But, I mean, song-wise, everything, it's like you nailed the prog rock thing down. I love the song Swan Song. I like the little false ending that comes back and brings it back in. And I'm not a huge prog rock guy.
Oh, we fought over that.
Yeah?
It was like, guys, lighten up. You can do that. Bohemian Rhapsody. They come back and they do a little piano ending. It's just like, But what's great about this band is that everybody expresses their opinions, but ultimately it's the final decisions is in the hands of the guy who wrote it, which Doug, wrote Tripping Over Shadows. Craig wrote Fire and Ice and Screaming at the Sky and Run for Your Life. So we would all have our input, but ultimately we really become a slave to serve the person whose dream it initially is. So that's one thing that really I love about this band, and I love doing it too, is making the person whose creation it is, really dig it and be happy with it and let it realize their dream in a way. And they did the same for me. So
you called it Tomorrow Never Comes. Why didn't you call it Touch 3?
Oh, I don't know. Is it too late?
It might not be.
I think it. Yeah, we could have called it, given it a number, but I think we wanted to give it a name. And unfortunately, Tomorrow Never Comes has a very strong relevance to our lives today, unfortunately. And it kind of says it. We could have, there's also, I love the title Scream at the Sky, which is Craig's song, but that was almost a little too death metal to name this album. That Scream at the Sky almost seems like Slayer or something, which we're not. But it kind of evolved into that.
Okay. when the restrictions, as the COVID restrictions are picking up, do you guys have any aspirations to do any festivals or something like that?
Well, we'd love to. I mean, we'd love to rehearse in the same room, for Christ's sake. You know, we miss the noise and that energy of a real Marshall amp, or, you know, kicking drums, because you're really doing it long distance digitally, so you don't get that feeling, that live feeling that you go to when you go to a concert. But I would say everybody's playing better than ever. I mean, Craig somehow is, you know, has his range is incredible. Has always been incredible, but he hasn't lost his range. In fact, maybe if it's got higher. He's singing high G sharps and high A's in some of these songs, like the ending of Tomorrow Never Comes, and he's still up in the stratosphere when he wants to be. And everyone kind of improved their playing, I would say. So it was a real pleasure to do.
Are the other guys still involved in the music industry?
Well, Dougie is. He always has been. Not so much Craig and Glenn. I mean, they play, but their lives haven't been in music. Craig's an artist, and he's always been into arts and music, but not as a career.
Okay. Why did the band originally break up after the release of Touch 2?
Well, that's kind of a long story. It's actually a short story, but you know,
record sales.
Well, no, because the second record didn't come out. The unfortunate thing was the producer of the second record kind of rarely showed up, if ever, and it just didn't sound good. The production value, the engineering value was not up to the level of what the record company wanted, or really what we wanted. We ended up trying to remix the record with Bob Clearmountain, who's, you know, one of the best mixers in the world, was then and still probably is. And then we did a song with Roger Glover to kind of try to salvage the situation, a song called Take It Back, which was very cool. But we couldn't quite get the record company to get it out. We wanted to re-record the whole thing. Our management attempted that, but that was an expensive thing, and we just kind of evaporated after that. We couldn't quite make it happen. So
let's go back a little bit. Let's go back a little bit to the beginning of Touch. It forms out of American Tears.
Yeah.
Why even go in the direction of changing the name?
Good question. Well, the sound of Touch was quite different than American Tears. American Tears was a keyboard trio. Yes, we evolved on the last record. We added Craig and guitar. We added some harmonies. But Touch was quite a different sound than the keyboard prog trio of me surrounded with 12 keyboards singing alone. The other guys in American Tears did not sing, so it was a lonely, it was a lonely time. So I needed some company. So, you know, the pendulum swung in a big way, I would say. Touch became very much what American Tears was not in terms of the production. I mean, we had three really good lead singers, lush harmonies, obviously guitar. And we were building these tapestries. We originally tried to get Roy Thomas Baker, who was the Queen producer, who we couldn't get, but Tim Fries Green, who assisted on many of the Queen albums, because we love that lush, you know, Queen harmony thing that they magically were able to get. And Tim came on board and produced the record. So we really had finally access to world-class production, so we could kind of realize our dreams. And if we wanted something lush and huge, it would be like, Tim, we want something lush and huge here. Okay, here we go. He knew how to do all this stuff. And I think it really ended up being a cool, competitive sounding record.
Yeah, absolutely. It came out on Atco Records at the time, I believe. It's kind of tough to trace the lineage of record companies sometimes.
Yeah,
but
well, it was on Areola in Europe,
okay.
and on Atco. So, we got a chance to come over to Europe, and we played Donington Festival,
Right.
Which 20 years later, we learned that we were the first band on the first Donington. So it was like, really? We didn't know at the time. But so there was that thing going on in Europe, and there was also kind of the thing going on in the US. So it was interesting.
So with Donington, back in 1980, it being like the first of what it became, the Monsters of Rock stuff, was that how it was presented to you, or was it just like another tour stop for you and Rainbow?
It was initially just another tour stop for us. And, oh, by the way, there's going to be 60,000 people there. And when we got there, to see that many people was really amazing. But, we were very tight. I mean, we had spent 2 or 3 years getting to that place, rehearsing in a loft in New York for, and then getting our deal, and then touring, and there were a number of dates before Donington. So we kind of just got up on stage and did our thing. And it's funny, our manager, Bruce Payne, who's an amazing manager, managed Deep Purple and Rainbow and made a lot of things happen for us. His kind of thing was, well, you play to the first few hundred people. You can't play to 60,000 people. You just work that. And we did.
Did you feel out of place with the harder rock bands, or, I mean, was it a time where something like that was kind of normal?
Well, on stage, we kind of kicked ass.
Yeah.
I mean, we had harmonies, and we're sort of melodic, but there was some rocking things, and you can hear it if you hear the Donington record live at Donington. But with guitars, you crank up the guitars, and all of a sudden things can become, aggressive. Meanwhile, I mean, Judas Priest and Rainbow, and those are some of my favorite bands. They were very big then, but nobody knew 30 years later that these bands would be the iconic bands of a generation. We were very lucky to be there, and very lucky to hang out with those guys and to meet them. And, some of those friendships have lasted through the years. So it's been great.
Excellent. Are you working on anything else? Are you working on, I know you're holed up in Sweden, so there's not much to do. So you must have your hands in a couple of different fires outside of Touch.
Well, there's too much to do, actually. When you have a studio, you can, which is kind of the way Touch was done. You wake up and you just walk in. My bed's right over there, and we're in a studio here for the last 10 months. Can't wait to get out. We do take walks, but it'll be nice to get back to the States. But as with a lot of bands, there's a lot of albums coming out. There's a lot of people being creative. So, I sometimes think, would we have been able to do this if it wasn't for the pandemic? Would we have had the time? Would have these guys have been able to take off from what they were doing to make it happen? So, it's a tragic situation, but I think creative people kind of go inside and try to salvage something and be creative. So that's kind of what we did. Yeah, I'm working on a couple of things. Of course, American Tears is out there now, Free Angel Express. So that's really getting a wonderful response, very exciting. And we just happened by some synchronicity to have finished the Touch thing, have gotten the deal. So they're kind of coming out a little bit at the same time, in a way. I mean, American Tears was out in November, but it's starting to hit the U.S. now because so much of the promotion that starts out in Europe doesn't get to the U.S. for 3 or 4 months anyway.
Right.
Like the reviews in Prague and Classic Rock and all these magazines. So it's happening a little bit simultaneously. But, you know, it is what it is.
Now, I saw a video from, I think it was Firefest in 2014, where you performed as American Tears with a different band. Was that just something that came together at the last minute, or did you attempt to put Touch together back then and it just didn't work out?
Well, it was actually a Touch tribute band. It was billed as Touch tribute. And the guy behind that is a guy named Kieran Dargan, who's an amazing fan of melodic rock, and he runs Firefest Festival in Nottingham. So he was a big fan of Touch. Mark, can you get the guys together? I tried. Doug almost did it. It couldn't happen. So Kieran put together this amazing band of some top Swedish players who've become great friends who I didn't know before. Göran Edman, who's sung with Yngwie, and Tommy Denander on guitar, and Pontus Engbord, who plays with Glenn Hughes, and Ken Sandin on bass. I mean, great players. And we basically rehearsed once. They came knowing the shit. I mean, all amazingly professional. And we went on and did it. It wasn't by any stretch supposed to be Touch, but we were doing Touch songs. We actually did a Fool's Game by Michael Bolton, but it was really, for me, encouraging to see the response because the people went crazy. Firefest is people from all over the world. It's like a Star Trek convention,
right?
For melodic metal. It's just a trip. How deeply these people are into this kind of music. You know, bands like Danger Danger and all that kind of stuff. So for me, it was very encouraging motivating to, you know, we got to get Touch back together and do some things. So again, it started out as one song and turned into 4 and then turned into 12. But that was that pushed it along a bit.
Yeah. Okay. Well, your new album, Tomorrow Never Comes, will be out April 30th here in the States. I believe it's a little bit earlier in Europe, and it's a great album. I think you're going to do wonderful with it.
We actually have a single. The single Tomorrow Never Comes, whatever that means these days, is coming out on Deco March 6th. And they're coming out with Let It Come as a second single later on in March. It's actually on Escape Music in Europe and Deco for the rest of the world. So people in Europe would have to go to Escape Records and everywhere else. Or if you want it digitally, it's all at Deco Entertainment. So
awesome. Well, that's all I got for you. That's all I got for you today, Mark.
That's great. It was fun, and I really appreciate you helping us get it out there.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for talking with Metal Express Radio.